back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Mike Sygula. First, I have a couple of announcements. Check out our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's also the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. This is where you find some of your favorite podcasts from our community featured. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rokfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. And our social media is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have 2 Facebook pages, 2 Instagrams. All those links are right in the description. Rokfin is where you get our premium content. You also get all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin, and that's only $10 a month. You can click the link in the description or go to rokfin.com/FKN+. That's ROKFIN.com/FKN+. Today I want to welcome Mike Sygula. He is founder of TruthTheory.com, an alternative media brand that has been around since 2010. He is also a mentor and spiritual development coach, helping his clients to align with their true purpose and their higher selves. Over the last 20 years, he has been on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. His mission is to help humanity to understand the true nature as multidimensional beings, what reality really is, and expose how the control system operates on this planet. Mike, welcome. How you doing?
I'm not bad. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for inviting me on your show. I'm looking forward to this conversation because the range of subjects that you cover is very close to my heart. I'm familiar with quite a few guests you've had on your show as well. So I think it's going to be a good connection.
Definitely, man. I've been looking forward to it as well. You've been on your spiritual journey for a very long time now, at least longer than I have. And I love to get into that journey and your insights into what we perceive as reality and the hidden control systems that attempt to keep us from really reaching our true potential. But this is your first time on. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing at TruthTheory.com.
Yeah, so I'm the guy behind a website called truththeory.com, and I've been running it for almost 12 years now, and we can say this is like independent alternative media. But due to censorship in the last couple of years, obviously the content is not as controversial as it could be or as it used to be. So especially, I'm sure you know what's going on, especially with the
I've had to do the same thing, especially with like YouTube and the mainstream platforms. I'm just putting clips up now of anything that's considered controversial or goes against the narrative.
Yeah, so if someone gonna go to Truth Theory, the content might not be exactly what we're gonna talk about today, because the news stories, obviously this gets heavily censored, but this website, I always try to create content that has at least some kind of positive or alternative perspective on the current world events, and it went through many stages of evolution. Same when I was going through evolution. So in the earlier years there was a lot of activist type of content, conspiracy type, natural health. Later on, maybe personal development, and in recent years, a little bit different. So this is website, and I also create my own content, which I've been only doing really like the videos and podcasts and things like that only in the last 2 years, 2.5, because before I was just busy running the site, doing editing and looking for content, but deep inside, I really wanted to also start teaching myself, and sharing my knowledge. So in the past, I would maybe write an article here and there, maybe like do like some random interviews. But last 2.5 years, I really started putting myself out there and creating a lot of materials and content. So that's one thing. And my awakening, let's say, took almost 20 years. Let's say it's been a gradual process with different developments over this period. And I grew up in Poland, first 20 years of my life, nothing really crazy when it gets to like these types of topics we are talking about. And then 2002, I slowly started getting interested in things like karma, for example. I was hanging out with a lot of guys who were doing some illegal things, like partying, drugs, whatever. And a lot of them were getting in trouble. And for me, it was pretty obvious how karma was at play. For example, I've had a lot of intuitive understandings of different topics. So, for example, tarot cards. For me, I just knew how tarot cards worked straight away without reading anything about it. It was just pretty obvious. So around this period from 2002, when I started becoming more and more interested in these types of fields and topics, I've noticed that, I have this intuitive understanding of many things, and others around me don't seem to understand things the same way. So I thought maybe this has to do with something, maybe from my past lives, maybe this is like my path, my mission. And that curiosity really propelled me to start investigating and learning, about reality and researching things. So from 2002, I slowly started researching. And it was, first couple of years was pretty slow. You just reading about Mayan calendar, whatever, Nostradamus, Bible code, many different fields, many different topics. When I got to London, because I left Poland in 2004, then I moved to the US. In 2005, I moved to England, to London, and I lived in London for more than 13 years. And London is a perfect place if you want to, study esoteric teachings and knowledge, because you can find everything in London, any kind of society, movement, whatever you want to study, there's plenty of opportunities. So this is what I've been doing. I've been going to different groups, New Age, Taoism, Buddhist, Wicca, Spiritists, and just exploring and investigating. And another thing that I think was maybe a little bit different to what many people do is that, I decided that I gotta have an open mind and study whatever gonna come, not only focus on one specific field or one area. So I was just, curious and wanted to know the truth. And then another very important aspect was that I decided, I'm gonna test things myself. So, let's say I was reading about out-of-body experiences and people who've had out-of-body experiences. And then I decided, let me give it a try. So, I would just research techniques, spend a couple of weeks working very hard, and finally having my first out-of-body experience. So this was my approach to many of these different topics and fields, that I actually really had a lot of self-discipline to just practice and try different rituals, different techniques, and different tools. And this really helped me to understand these fields from inside out, because, you can study all you want, you can get educated about a subject, but once you get to experience that, that's a whole different level of understanding. So this was my approach, especially last 15 years. And it has good and bad sides, because the good side about it is that, you get to understand things properly through your own experiences. So verifying if something is real or not. And that's always way better than just theoretical knowledge. But the problem with this approach is that sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself burned, let's say. You can put hand in fire. And that's what I've done many times as well, when I was experimenting with some, darker side of things, and then I would get consequences, let's say. So I also had many situations where I ended up in trouble because of this method, but it helped me to really understand many different fields, So, yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah, your journey is very similar to what I've gone through, and I understand that part of your journey was also psychedelics, which is also part of mine.
Yeah, psychedelics definitely helped me to really understand a lot of things. And I've had some of the biggest realizations on psychedelics, but I also had some of the worst experiences of my life. So I don't want to promote psychedelics as this beautiful tool that anyone can use and get awakened like that, because I've had some insanely negative experiences, including my most recent trip in May. I don't know if we're going to get into this. It's a long story, but basically I had an attempt of possession by very dark being. And I had to get out of it using the methods that I was familiar with, and I was able to do it. But that really showed me the dangers of psychedelics as well. And from that moment, I decided, I need to take a break. I'm not going to be using psychedelics for some time because it became very risky. But I've had some great experiences. I would like to get into some of this as well. But yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, while we're in this realm of psychedelics, what were you using, mushrooms when you had this negative experience, or something else?
I mean, I normally use mushrooms. I like mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find those are for the best overall type of spiritual experience I've had is with mushrooms, and I've had very profound experiences as well. Some pretty terrifying at times, but nothing like you said. I did have a pretty profound experience where I believe a spiritual attachment was removed. It could have been along the same lines, but yeah, if you want to get into some of those experiences, we sure can.
I think, because the stuff, especially things I've been doing over the last couple of years, are pretty advanced, let's say. And to understand some of this stuff, I think we need to kind of go through the different stages I was going through.
Sure.
Because there is a context to what's been going on recently. So like I said, I was getting on this path. I was already in London, and I was just trying different things. And for example, one of the interesting experiences I've had was in 2008 or 2009. Around this period, I was experimenting a lot with healing methods, like Reiki, kind of like Reiki, but not the same methods. So I was doing a lot of these techniques, Qigong or Qigong, absent healing, distance healing, things like that. And one evening, I smoked a little bit of weed and I went to bed. And I wasn't like guy who smokes weed frequently, but I'm familiar with how weed works because when I was younger, in my late teens, I would smoke. So obviously, I was familiar with cannabis. And that evening, that was 2008 or 9, I smoked a little bit of weed, went to bed, and for half an hour, 40 minutes, I've had this weird experience where this white light appeared in front of my head, and I started having this energy healing on me, which was like Reiki, but amplified 100 times. It was super powerful. So I was shaking in bed, for 40 minutes or half an hour. It's just like this, And it obviously weed kind of enhanced the feeling probably. And I think the weed really what it's done, it just opened me up a little bit so I could be more relaxed and absorb that. But it was very powerful and very positive. The energy was really nice. I felt very good when it was happening. So I've had this experience and I kind of brushed it off. I forgot about it. And because around this period, I was already getting into Qigong, doing energy healing and things like that. I thought that because I started becoming more and more sensitive to energies. So, for example, I could feel my chakra, I'm breathing in and I get my palm tingling. I go to a church and I feel the energy inside the church. I go to a place where they do healing and I straight away start feeling the energy. I go to a forest and I feel the trees and things like that. So I started becoming sensitive to energies, different types of energies. And I thought this has to do with Qigong because, I'm training a lot. This opened me up. But later on, I stopped doing Qigong, and then this stayed till today with me, this ability to feel energies. And I realized later on that night when I had this weird experience, that activated these abilities. Because later on, I actually even talked to someone else and I met at least 2 people who had similar experience. So I've had some kind of upgrade, like a single one night activation. And because over time, I talked to my guides and I was shown that this wasn't an accident. It was something that I agreed on before incarnation that was a part of communication. So another thing about the energy thing is that I remember, reading after it happened, maybe like a year later, whatever, I'm in a metro and I'm reading a book about spirits, and the word spirit, I'm reading the word spirit, and then I feel like someone is tapping me in my ear like this, like listen. So I started paying attention to these types of taps. Because of that energy activation thing, I became sensitive to spirits as well. So I could get like yes, no, taps. Sometimes over the years, this became a system of communication with my guides, with my spirit guides. And actually, it wasn't an accident. So, let's say if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, I get like slapped in my face or like someone's putting finger in my ear, or I get like, yes, no. This is one of the things. And that started through this activation. Another thing is dreams,
Now, before we move on, do you think this was your spirit guides doing this or other types of spirits?
I mean, sometimes it can be whoever is going to be around, but it's a part of my system of communication with my spirit guides. I was even explained this in one of my psychedelic sessions, where I was shown that this is something that I agreed on before incarnation, as something that's going to get activated. So now it's pretty obvious to me, because I've been using it for like more than 10 years. But around this period, it's like, let's say I'm doing something what I shouldn't be doing. And then I get like someone's putting a finger in my ear, like, listen, or like slapping in my face, whatever. So this is one of couple of areas that I developed to get more in tune with my spirit guides and my higher self. Another is dreams. And, I'm sure you're familiar with higher self, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have had what I believe is my own experiences with my guides and my own higher self.
Yeah. So, for me, like I said, this energy activation thing and this kind of communication with spirit guides, that was one of the first bigger experiences. And around 2011, in 2011, I met a girl who, became my girlfriend, and we learned that actually she is my twin flame. So someone I've been incarnating with thousands of times. We did a lot of work. Like she's very psychic. So because she's very psychic, I could learn a lot about these things through her because, you have someone 24/7 who has access to different wavelengths and different, levels. So she was very helpful in helping me to understand more about these types of topics and fields. And what's happening in we are living in this big house in 2011, right, together with her and my brother. And my brother, he had some drug problems. One time he overdosed. Me and this girl came to see him found him like overdose on the floor. And she said, like, she saw two shadows feeding of him, like just jumping and feeding of him, when he was like under substance on floor. So that was one of the first times I heard about anything like, some kind of entities feeding of energy of like drug addicts or things like that. And what happened later on, because me and my brother, we used to do a lot of like, drugs, partying, whatever in the past. And this girl, she was very sensitive. She said that we were attracting a lot of these negative entities around us because of that. So finally, because she was so sensitive, she decided to leave. And she couldn't stay around me. And I was quite heartbroken, whatever, right, around this period. So, I started praying, whatever. And then a year later or something, we started having conversations once again with her. And then she started telling me that there is this spirit that looks like me that started showing up in her life, but he looks like me in 20, 30 years. So like he wears the same kind of clothes, looks like me, but maybe in 50s or whatever, something like that. So I became very interested, like, who is this entity? Because like I said, she can see spirits, she can communicate with them. So, for example, when he started appearing, she was doing her exams for her method because she's a healer. So she's doing this life alignment. It's like a healing method. And I think it was 2012. She was doing exams, like, for this method to get qualified. And this spirit who looked like me started helping her with her exams. So, just guiding her how to like do the exams and things like that. So I became very interested, like, let's get to talk to him. Like, so one time we sat down, two of us, and I said, call him and let me ask him some questions, what's the connection? So he appeared, touched like my arm, touched her arm. And I was asking questions. She was telling me what she can see. So I said, like, what's the relationship between you and me? Are you some alien? Like, this is the question I asked. And she said he morphed his face into my face to show me that he's me, basically, from that 50-year-old version into my face, and then morphed back to his older look. Then I asked him, like, can you help me with anything? So he pulled like this ring with keys. This is what I'm explaining, what this girl was seeing, what she could see when I was asking these questions. So we found out that it was my higher self. He basically appears for someone like her who has senses developed as old version of me, but this is just an interface, it's not his real form, obviously. And to communicate with me, he gave us his name, Amadeus, which is not his real name, but it's like, it's like just for us again. This is just so I can call him whenever I need. And this was like the beginning of my relationship with my higher self. That I started consciously communicating with my higher self, getting guidance in dreams in many ways, my spirit guides. And then next, over the next couple of years, I've had a bunch of experiences that really like pushed this whole path of awakening and getting into this into even farther. So in 2015, I was really like, I had this period where I wasn't really following my path, let's say, I stepped out, like I was running still Truth Theory, but I was just like programmed. I thought that I need to do like a startup thing, which gonna be like technological startup, whatever. So that wasn't aligned, was like more kind of ego goal, like a money goal, whatever. And I decided to focus on that. And I attracted a business partner who was basically, we were like arguing, constantly having some issues. So I was programmed. I wasn't following my true purpose and true passion. And for like maybe 2 years or something, I deviated a little bit from my path. And then I was hitting the wall, getting messages that this is not what I should be doing. So through that experience in 2015, I went on holidays for a week to Czech Republic, just like went there, met a friend. And then there was this guy who was very popular around this period in like the psychedelic scene. He's not very active now, but he was like this guy that I knew into psychedelics. He was like doing these Terence McKenna's videos, whatever, and I knew him online. So I decided this is like a random trip, just went on holidays. I decided, let's go and meet this guy because I'm gonna be around him. And we met. He was living in the mountains in Czech Republic, and he said, like I said, let's do some psychedelics since I'm already here and you are the psychedelic guru. And this was the first time I've done psychedelics since I was teenager or whatever, because so some completely different experience. At that time, that was 2015, I was 33 exactly. So, first big experience. And it was like a coincidence. I didn't even plan that, I didn't plan this trip or anything. And on that trip, during that trip, I literally like went to a level what I consider my higher self. So I basically saw reality from very high level where the whole reality was just me. And, like the same way you could think about the whole reality was just happening in my mind. And I was a higher form, higher version, very powerful, like looking like a god or something. And from that level, like decade on Earth seemed like 1 hour there. It was like such a difference. And I was being guided that I'm not following my path. I should not be going towards this materialistic kind of startup thing that I started. And this was like a wake-up thing for me, and it's funny that it happened around this period when I stepped away, it was like almost like I didn't listen to myself. I deviated and someone is like, okay, let's pull him out for a moment. Let's show him what's going on. Have a slap, wake up. You see what's going on. So from that level, this was first time it happened. And I had a couple of times. Over the next few years, I've done psychedelics maybe like 12 times. So I came back to that level. And this was one of the most important things I ever experienced. It was like from that level, the whole reality is just you. And everything that happens, whether it's like wars, Trump, whoever there is all linked to your own behavior. So basically, I could see that reality is just like a dream that is linked to my own behavior. And the timeline, I was being warned about it, like if I'm not going to be following my path, let's say, the timeline, so the version of reality will unfold into some dark scenario. There was a lot of interesting things. For example, I was shown that when I'm going to heal myself, things around me going to start healing. So let's say, like my brother who had addiction problem, when I started fixing myself with some of my issues, the same period he started fixing himself. So, like I was being shown how it all works, how everything is just one entity, and really the whole thing, reality we are experiencing is just a fractal reflection of what's happening on an individual level. So that's from that moment, my awakening really started moving up and up, because through these experiences, I was being shown more and more what's going on.
What can we do to fight back against big pharma and the compromised medical industry? We can become healthy and break free from the perpetual cycle of being poisoned by criminal organizations like most pharmaceutical companies. Come check out what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man, C60 PurplePower. The benefits of C60 have been personally outstanding. I use it every day and I feel incredible. I have tons of energy, I sleep great, and I haven't even come down with a cold since I started using C60 over 2 years ago. You can even get C60 for your pets. Do your own research, click the link in the description, and check out their website. If you order from that link or use coupon code KNOWLEDGE10, you get 10% off your order plus free shipping. What is your health worth to you?
And I felt like, since I'm getting so many interesting things on psychedelics, I need to start doing them more frequently. So I started, doing sessions every couple of months, and I got to a point. I don't know. I think maybe because I've been like on this journey for many years. I've been meditating for many years. Maybe I just opened my third eye, whatever. I don't know. But basically, what started happening was that in every single session, I would tune into my higher self, and I could answer any question I wanted, and I would get answers like this. It could be about anything, like who I was in my previous lifetime. I would get into that lifetime. Who is Bill Gates? Who he was in the previous lifetime? Who was Elon Musk? Like I was asking all sorts of questions, and I was getting answers about anything, like about COVID. So I became like so hyped about it, and I started like exploring it. But then I learned something very interesting. So, this girl that I was talking about, my ex, Raquel, she often would tell me about our past lives, and she basically, for example, one time she told me that she remembered one of her past lives when she was a white reptilian, the ones with the wings. And, that's like the first time I've heard anything about that from her. And then my cousin, who is also in my group, in my soul group, who actually works for me on Truth Theory. He's like, my assistant for the last, 10, 12 years. He's very close to me. he had a very interesting experience. So my cousin, basically, he had a lot of challenges in his life. He was like abusing drugs, depressed, father abusive, like constant challenges in his life. And a couple of years ago, he bought some drugs from whatever web, and they sent him this sample to try some other type of drug. And he mixed two drugs that he shouldn't be mixing, and he had a near-death experience. So what happened was that my cousin basically says that he just like overdosed, and suddenly he found himself in this dark space that was like very peaceful, kind of like this energetic wind. And he hears this intelligent sounding voice speaking to him, saying like, "You're gonna die. You overdosed. Your brain is overheating. You have whatever, a couple of minutes. Do you want to stay or do you want to go?" And then he was like, "I've had enough. I think I don't want to live my kind of life anymore." So he said, "I feel like I want to go." And the voice said, "If you're gonna leave, you still have things to finish in this lifetime. You're gonna have to repeat them in your next incarnation." And then he showed him, the voice, showed him this whole plan of his life, which he said looked like a map. It was his soul plan, basically. So it looked like a map, apparently, with different X's, like what was accomplished already, what still there is to accomplish, even options of departure, like the death scenarios. And the voice said, like, if you're gonna decide to go now, there are still things to finish. You're gonna have to finish them in your next incarnation. So my cousin said, "Okay, in this case, I want to stay." So then when he decided to stay, this whole plan was kind of wiped out. So he says he remembers only like seeing that, but he doesn't remember like the details from it anymore. So it's like, okay, you have free will, if you decide to stay, you are not allowed to know the plan, right? Because this is like pre-incarnation planning. You should have a free will here and decide whatever you want to do. So the voice said, you still have a couple of moments left before you're gonna go back to your body. Is there anything you want to know? And my cousin said, "I want to know why my life looks the way it looks. Why it's so full of suffering." And in that moment, he saw this scene where there was this massive reptilian being standing in front of the ship like a UFO, looking down at this white being with long white hair, way smaller, and like looking, at this smaller being with like trying to like kill it wherever. And then this white being, the other guy, started talking about love. And he was like, "What is love? I want to know what is love," So basically, what we think happened was when he saw that, he just had this like, this is me, this guy, this reptilian figure, that was me. So what we think happened was that his higher self showed him the moment when he decided to change. He was like, he had these lives as negative entity, but he decided now to change and go towards love and the other side. And that was the moment when he made decision. So we found out that, okay, my cousin learned that he had some past lives as a reptilian, my ex. And then I was curious, what about me? I'm curious if I've had any lifetimes like that. So during my sessions, I started asking questions. And what happened was that, one time I asked this question and I saw a scene underground, like some kind of tail moving and things like that. I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. I started like shouting, I knew it. I knew it. And my friend who was behind me, he was like, he didn't know what I was seeing, obviously, because it was like on psychedelics. He was like, you shouldn't be focusing on bad things, So it's almost like he subconsciously knew what I was watching there. So that was actually last year, I think. Was it last year? 2021. So I found out about this, and then over the during next few sessions, I started asking more questions about it. So, for example, during one of the sessions, I was being shown my past lives, mostly like stuff on Earth. For like 5 minutes, I was bombarded with these scenes of all the nasty things I was doing, like some kind of Middle Ages, killing people, dark magic, whatever. And I was being bombarded with like this. And I'm like, my higher self is basically showing me like, what I used to do. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that anymore. I'm like, I have enough. And I'm hearing, no, you wanted to know. You wanted to understand. Let's continue. And another 5 minutes, I'm being bombarded with these nasty scenes.
Wow.
And I'm like, I've had enough. I don't want to watch that anymore. And finally, I'm hearing like, this is why you should not focus on these things, because the more you focus on that, the more you attract them. So the same evening when I had this session, this being appeared, who was like really angry reptilian, and he was, I don't know who he was, but he seemed like my dad or some kind of guy above me, whatever, because he was like, he knew who I was, and he was like, you are a traitor. We made pacts. He was like communicating with me telepathically, and I was like, time to evolve, time to go up. So I started having these experiences, and during my sessions with psychedelics, because now in a way we stepped out from this path, we are treated like traders, let's say. So I've also had a lot of attacks during these sessions, because of these connections from my past lives.
So you're saying that the negative entities would consider you a traitor for not following this negative path that you were on?
Yeah, basically, we've had lives as different types of reptilians. I've saw a bunch of different bodies already. One time I entered a body, I could see like my characteristics were very similar. I could feel personality, and I'm hearing mentally Draco reptilian. So I would be explained about like different lifetimes, who I was in, not only reptilian, because a lot of us had lifetimes in different groups, and through psychedelics, I was able to like tap in to different lifetimes and see myself. Sometimes, see different scenes. And the more I understood about these different aspects, the more everything started making sense, why I'm getting myself in trouble. So this is, in a nutshell. But another interesting thing is that, one of the very important things about the control system here is how the free will aspect is being manipulated. So free will is basic law that is created by the source, right? So, for example, are you familiar with karmic contracts?
Yes.
Yeah, so like, maybe I think this is something we could talk about a little bit, because that's gonna get into like the control system, but also I know it based on my experiences. So if in a nutshell, we have source, right, which is like collective consciousness, the whole field of consciousness, whatever. This field is like the intelligence, the mind that creates this universe, which is like the virtual reality game for itself, to experience itself, to create, to be creative, whatever. And it splits itself into smaller units, so fragments itself. So every little bit from you, me, Rock is just an aspect of that one mind. So the same way as we create reality in our minds, or when we dream, the same way, because we are in an image of the whole, the same way this whole universe is created in the mind of the source. And this playground, this system is designed by the source, so it can experience itself, it can see, what it's able to create, because you don't know how far you can go before you're going to start creating and experimenting, right? So you don't really have limitations, and you want to see what you are able to create. So this is like very quickly explaining the basics. And one of the first rules, and one of the most important rules that this collective consciousness created, is the free will element. So for example, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense to have free will and contracts, because if, I don't know, you have entities that are more powerful, they would be able to take advantage of less powerful beings. So if you have free will, karmic contracts, and karma, then this is not allowed, So this is how I cannot punch you, let's say, if you are not either deserving that through maybe your karmic actions from the past, maybe you punch someone, now you can experience that. Or the other option is that you agreed to it, so this is the free will aspect. So for example, the system of manipulation on this planet is based around free will. So, free will is a law, and the dark side, let's say, has to obey the law. So, but they want us to behave in specific ways, so they can feed off our emotions, feed off our fear, feed off sexual energy, different things. So the way they can operate is because they cannot influence our free will, but what they can do, they can create conditions where we do what they want us to do, right? So for example, they put their puppets in music industry, in Hollywood. They create whole economic system where people are programmed to act selfishly, to like desire materialism, to like, have this ego-driven behavior, focus on superficiality, whatever it is, right? This is all programmed through Hollywood, through entertainment industry. We have economic system of slavery where we just keep running, chasing money, and this now creates conditions where people desire things that create emotions, right? Because when people chase money, yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask you, is this control system something that is outside of what you would consider source? And are these negative entities also outside of this simulated reality? Are they just part of everything to help us grow in a certain way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, they cannot exist without us. So we, in a way, allowed them, created them, same way, if you live out of balance, you start having bacteria feeding of you, or some parasites, whatever. The same thing happens with the mind. People who have ego desires, for example, they become corrupted by different entities that want to use them, let's say. So in a way, they are just like a shadow aspect of our own behavior. But this idea of free will and contracts, because they cannot push us to do things because of that free will aspect. But if they program people so they act themselves to do what they want us to do, then they kind of cleverly navigate around that free will. And the way I learned about free will and karmic contracts was because when I wanted to manifest things, I was experimenting a lot with rituals and some kind of law of attraction techniques and affirmations and blah blah. And I had several cases where I manifested something, and then I got myself in a contract, with some kind of not nice beings. So I don't know. I mean, let me give you an example of that.
Sure.
Like, I've had a couple of examples where, so 2019, I was living in Spain, and I was doing my prayers. I normally pray to my higher self, sometimes to like Archangel Michael for protection, whatever. But at that period, I was actually praying to Jesus. And I've had like experiences when I was younger, like someone prayed to Jesus. I had some like remarkable experience. So to me, I felt like Jesus is like a real being, all these kind of things. But so in 2019, when I was like in Spain, I did my prayers, and typical prayers would be something like, guide me, protect me. But this time I decided to ask for help in business. I never asked for help in business, but one time I decided to ask. And I was meditating, and I saw a contract, like a vision of contract. Sometimes I get visions when I meditate. So I was like, this contract appeared with a signature. And I was like, why would Jesus give me a contract? That sounds a little bit strange. So over the next few days, things started moving in my business. I got some partnerships that I really wanted for a very long time, like started happening. And at the same time, because I get a lot of guidance in dreams, I was being guided that I got myself in some trouble with like some dark entities. So, for example, I've had this dream where I get dreams showing me things that are very often symbolic. And in that dream, there was this scene where basically there was like, like there were these, I don't know, guys doing some kind of theater, street theater, and they were sucking energy from people around, right? This is a dream, right? And people in the crowd, they were not able to see what these guys were doing, but I was the only person who could see that. So they noticed that I see what they're doing. They're stealing energy from people, and one of them started chasing me. So I'm talking about dream. And when I started running away, this massive angel came, like with big wings, grabbed my hand and pulled me out and saved me, basically. There were these guys chasing me. This massive angel came, grabbed my hand, and pulled me out. So I've had this dream, and I was like, I knew that this wasn't Jesus. It was some, trickster or whatever. So the next day after this dream, where, this angel is saving my life, whatever, I started looking online for how to break karmic contracts. And I found a YouTube channel called Tools for Ascension by Wolfgang. This is a guy who is doing like these types of meditations, and he had a meditation there on breaking karmic contracts. So I decided to do this meditation. And in the meditation, you call Archangel Michael to help you to break the contracts. So it's funny that the day before, I've had a dream when this angel with wings saved me, from this. And the next day, I'm finding this meditation about Archangel Michael removing contracts. And I forgot to add one thing. So when it was happening, when I got in that contract with Jesus, and then I started getting help with business and blah, blah, I started feeling this heavy energy on my back, on the right side. So, because I'm sensitive to energies, I could feel it. So it wasn't the first time, by the way. And during this meditation with Archangel Michael, it was about clearing contracts. And after that, the same day, this energy disappeared, right? This heavy energy on my back disappeared. And when I was meditating the same day, I had this vision of a scar on the right side of my back, like something got removed from my back. So because I've got myself in these types of situations many times already with contracts, this was an example of a contract,
So you would definitely say people should be very careful to the deities that they're praying for, and of course the intention they have behind it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a lot of people who experiment with like manifestation things, and there are two things. One is either maybe you subconsciously attracted something because maybe you visualize something, whatever. But the second element is very often someone is helping you, and if they are your guides and higher self, that's good. But if your intentions are like selfish, whatever it is, then there is a high chance that you're going to manifest that, but the guy who's going to help you with it is not a nice guy, and it's going to turn against you sooner or later. And I've had many examples of that because I've done it over and over and over with different things. And I, like 3 or 4 times, I've had this thing on my back, which I learned that it was an implant. It's basically, they get you in a contract, they help you to manifest what you want, which never is what you wanted. Like, it's always a trick, it's always like, oh, you're going to get a girlfriend, but it ends up that you're arguing all the time or whatever, like something like that. And then because you agreed on something, they are allowed to like take whatever they want. So they might attach something to you, suck your energy, for example, or, things like that. And I've learned that through my experiences, but also I was shown that in my sessions, I was being explained how it works, So I was being shown how like the whole planet is manipulated in this way. People who basically, like if someone, let's say, selfish and desires money, let's say you have a person like that, what might happen is that they start getting help But now the beings behind it are using that person for their own benefits, or, adding some attachments to like suck their energy, whatever it is. Like you're often going to see someone who maybe is like ego driven and they're angry. So they like to keep them in that level of vibration, so, because then they become easier to manipulate.
Now, I was hoping we could go back to the aspect of following our path and how we can create a desirable reality by following the path that we should be on, versus if we're doing something that isn't in our best interest, or if we're doing drugs or going down a negative path, how it can manifest really really bad things in our lives, right?
Yeah, I mean, so through all these experiences, like I said, I had a lot of negative and positive experiences, getting myself in trouble with contracts, things like that, being programmed, like I said, like not following my path, deviating from my path. So I've had a lot of these things that I had to overcome to really understand what is the right thing for me. And this is something that I'm actually teaching others. I'm doing now coaching one-on-one, where I help people to align with that, because I went through it and I discovered a system that works for, I guess, almost everyone who is open to it. So what it involves aligning with our higher selves. So you have your higher self, and higher self is your ultimate version. This is like your full mind. It's like, they say higher self, seventh, eighth density. So we here are just like a tiny bit of our higher selves. And higher self is acting as our spirit guide, is like the main guide. So the more we ask, because free will aspect, you need to be asking, you need to be wanting stuff, but it's important what you want. It's not about, I want to have Ferrari. It's about what is good for me, what is the right thing for me, because there is a big difference between what people desire and what is good for them. People often confuse these things. A lot of people think that, let's say, I don't know, I like this girl, I would like to be with her, and then once you get to know her, it turns out that you are not compatible, maybe, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a difference between what people desire and what is good for them. And we often don't know what is good for us, but our higher self knows that. So it's very important to tune into that aspect and allow it to unfold. So there is a whole process how this can be amplified. And what it does, it helps you to open synchronicities. For example, if you know what you're doing, you can start having more and more synchronicities. You can start unfolding the path that is organic, that's gonna make you more excited and things like that. I'm sure you're familiar with this with your work, right? Because
very much.
Now finally you're doing something you're passionate about. And before, I think you've had a job you didn't like, whatever, right? Something like that, right?
Yeah, that's definitely 100%. I had a very similar experience of tuning into the frequency of my higher self and my spirit guides, and allowing the information that they gave me to guide me down the correct path. And one of the first things that included is quitting a toxic job that was horrible for me and following something that I was passionate about. So everything you said resonates very much about finding that path that you're supposed to be on, and the universe will take care of you if you're on that right path.
Yeah. So this whole system, like, involves tuning into our higher selves by just asking, my higher self, please guide me and protect me, and whatever is that we need, but that's aligned, not selfish. So an example could be, like we said with the girlfriend, I like this girl. You don't say, oh, higher self, please connect me with this girl, whatever. You would say something, my higher self, help me to find the partner that's going to match me and I'm going to be happy with. Mm-hmm. Or help me to become version so I can match my ultimate partner. This is like really important. So, you know, help me to find the path that is aligned with my soul, with my soul plan, with my true purpose. So these are important. And because of free will, because of this aspect that we need to ask for help, this is another important thing that we need to be asking, you know, because higher self acts as guide. And you have to be asking your guide for help to keep getting more and more. But also there's another very important element here is, so it's important, you know, asking, but it's important how you ask, not for selfish things, not that things that are not aligned, but more in general ways. And then there is another very important element, which I know a lot of people don't talk about, but it's about karma. So the more you help, you know, I always say karma is like a currency. The more you help, the more you can get help. So sometimes we need things that we don't even know we need them. You know, let's say you have some underlying issue that you only observe the behavior that is external, but the underlying mechanism is unknown to you. Maybe like some, I don't know, contract, maybe ancestor, karma, whatever. There might be some deep mechanism that is blocking you, but you don't know what is it, right? You don't know. And your higher self knows that. So if you allow it to work and you start helping others, you can get more help yourself. This is something very important that I've learned because I've had a lot of experiences where I had to help people, you know, like, for example, with my sister, I spent a long time helping her with her university. And I noticed how the more I was like spending my time on guiding her, the more I was getting guidance. Like I would get guidance in dreams all the time when I was helping her at university. When I stopped doing that, the guidance kind of deviated. It started like getting less and less. I've noticed that with other people. So for example, you know, think about it this way, the more you help, you do something extra, the more you get something extra, the more you get help. In a way, this is the opposite to the system, the control system, because the control system programs people to be selfish, you know, to not listen to their intuition, but do things to get more and more and more, right? Like this is typical, you know, you just do things to get more money, whatever, you know, even though it doesn't feel aligned, you feel stressed, but that's what the society says is good, right? And be selfish. This is another program, right? So this is the system of the controlling side. And what I'm teaching is the opposite. So align with your true purpose, and for everyone it's unique. You know, help others. So it's important to every week spend some time to help others, because, you know, we are programmed to think about ourselves, to be selfish. When someone comes to us and asks for help, we're going to be like, oh, I'm too busy, blah, blah. Or if I'm going to help, I'm always expecting something back. So this is the wrong way of doing things. Once you try to genuinely be helpful, you start getting help and you start getting things that you need when you need. So you get more into synchronicities. And this is something I've been experimenting with a lot. And it really got me so many interesting things, like, you know, understandings. Whenever I needed something, whenever I was in trouble, always solution would come. So it's another important element, you know.
Yes, man, 100%. This is excellent. We're definitely gonna have to talk with you more in the future. I think we barely scratched the surface on some of this stuff, but we got tons of information out there. It's a great start for people. If the folks are interested in what you're offering and to find out more about you, what's the best way that they can do so?
I guess, if you go to truththeory.com, just have a look what's going on there. If you find Truth Theory on YouTube, because I'm doing a lot of video content, especially about spirituality. So you can check it out. If you want to do like coaching one-on-one, just go to truththeory.com and use contact form, send me an email, and we can have a call, whatever. And on social media, Mike Sygula or Truth Theory on all the major platforms.
Perfect, Mike. Well, like I said, this was awesome, and we'll definitely have to do this very soon in the future again.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for inviting me, Chris. Yeah, it's great to talk to you today.
Definitely. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again Monday. We'll see y'all then.